The Young and the Restless. Spoilers. In the dramatic world of The Young and the Restless, where family legacies are built on secrets, lies, and strategic power plays, a shocking confession unfolds, one that promises to ignite a series of betrayals and power shifts. Kyle Abbott, a man who has always tried to carve out his own path amidst the shadows of the Abbott family legacy, finally admits to Claire Newman the scandalous plot orchestrated by none other than his own grandfather, Victor Newman. The patriarch of the Newman family, ever the manipulator, had devised a plan to break up Kyle's relationship with Claire, using none other than a woman he saw as a pawn, Audra Charles. The revelation is as stunning as it is calculated. Victor, whose grip on power is as unyielding as ever, had decided that Claire, the granddaughter of his enemy, was not allowed to form any meaningful bond with an Abbott. He didn't just oppose their relationship. He went a step further, using his influence and ruthless strategy to manipulate the very dynamics of Claire's life. His chosen weapon? A charming, ambitious, and ultimately expendable woman, Audra Charles. Audra, who had previously shown a knack for getting close to powerful men and using her charm to her advantage, was now to be Victor's key to shattering Claire's happiness. In a move that seemed almost too predictable for someone as calculating as Victor, he approached Audra with an offer she couldn't refuse, financial backing for her business, but only on one condition: she needed to break up Kyle and Claire. The scene unfolds against the backdrop of the luxurious, sun-drenched streets of Nice, where the wheels of deceit grind ever faster. Audra, aware of the stakes, takes her place in Kyle's hotel room, poised to do her part in what she believes to be a game of high stakes. She steps into the room, ready to finalize the deal with Victor's blessings. What could go wrong? But here's where the twist deepens. Kyle, ever the strategist himself, has seen Victor's plot from miles away. Instead of stepping back or running from the challenge, he chooses to engage head-on. In a move that shocks everyone, he willingly falls into Victor's trap, believing that his involvement will allow him to outplay the master manipulator. He takes the bait, allowing Audra into his world under the guise of signing the deal. And it doesn't stop there. He knows that to truly fool Victor, he must play along completely. The defining moment arrives when Kyle, half-dressed in nothing but a bath towel, locks lips with Audra in a dramatic scene that feels far from genuine. It's a kiss that seems to betray everything, a betrayal of Claire, of the love they shared, and yet, Kyle sees it as nothing more than a strategic move. His mind races with one singular purpose: exposing Victor's web of lies before it entangles them all. But can he? Can he truly distance himself from the messy repercussions of what just unfolded? When Kyle finally returns to Claire, his confession spills out. He tells her everything, framing the entire incident as part of his grand strategy. He claims it was all a part of a larger plan to get closer to Victor and uncover the depths of his scheming. It was never a Real affair, he insists. It was all for the greater good of their relationship. But as he watches Claire's face crumble with disbelief, he realizes the cost of his deception. He's lost her. Not because of love lost or feelings faded, but because his strategic move has shattered the trust between them. Claire, ever the strong-willed woman, is initially caught off guard. She listens, absorbing his words like a sponge, but as his explanation unravels, she begins to see the truth for what it is. Kyle has indeed deceived her, but in a way that defies everything she thought she knew about him. This wasn't a simple love triangle, it was a calculated play for control, a game of power that had used her as a mere pawn. She tries to make sense of his actions, her emotions torn between love and betrayal. But Kyle's strategic mind has already worked out his next move. He makes it clear that while their relationship might be damaged, it's not beyond repair. He appeals to her sense of logic. His actions, as painful as they are, were all in the name of exposing Victor's scheming and securing a future for them both. But Claire, whose heart has been shattered, begins to see a different side of the man she thought she knew so well. She had once seen him as a romantic partner, a man who would protect her at all costs, but now she questions everything. What happens next is a dramatic shift in the dynamics between the two. Claire, though heartbroken, refuses to give Victor the satisfaction of seeing her broken. She does the unthinkable, she channels all her fury, not at Kyle, but at Victor and his accomplice, Audra. Gone is the fragile, sweet-natured woman she once was. She becomes a force to be reckoned with, a woman scorned and determined to strike back. No longer content to sit quietly by the sidelines of Victor's power plays, Claire steps into the game herself. The tables have turned. Claire, now fully aware of Victor's manipulation and Audra's role in it, begins to play her own hand. She starts digging into Audra's past, uncovering secrets and weaknesses that no one else knows. As Victor becomes more embroiled in his own machinations, Claire becomes a formidable opponent, her anger and betrayal fueling her desire for revenge. Audra, for all her cunning and charm, is now a pawn in a game she didn't see coming. Claire, with her sharp intellect and steely determination, will make sure of that. The stakes have never been higher, and neither Claire nor Kyle knows where this power struggle will lead them. But one thing is clear, the gloves are off. In the game of love, power, and betrayal, only one side will emerge victorious. In a final showdown, Victor and Claire face off, their long-standing battle of wits reaching its peak. Claire, who once found herself on the defensive, now commands the battlefield, using her emotions not as a crutch, but as a weapon. She is no longer just the granddaughter of Victor's rival, she is a player in this high-stakes game. And as for Kyle? Well, he's no longer the naive lover caught in a web of deceit. He is now a partner in Claire's quest for revenge, working together to bring down the powerful Victor Newman. In the end, as the dust settles, the question remains, who will be left standing, and who will be consumed by the very forces they sought to control? Victor Newman, with all his cunning and ruthless strategies, was undoubtedly certain that his granddaughter Claire would crumble under the weight of his manipulations. It was a monumental mistake. What he failed to realize was that Claire was not the naive young woman he imagined her to be, easily susceptible to the iron grip of his control. Instead, Claire, in a dramatic turn of events, publicly humiliated Victor during the memorial for her late father, Cole Howard. This was just the beginning, a powerful statement that she was no longer willing to tolerate her grandfather's tyrannical influence. Standing side by side with Kyle, Claire drew a hard line in the sand, signaling the end of Victor's reign over her. And her target? Audra Charles. But Claire's confrontation with Audra wasn't about resolving the issue with a simple showdown, it was a carefully calculated move to expose the truth, a bold declaration of the war she had just begun. For those who have been watching Claire's character evolve, this was the moment when the dark side of her persona, which many had long speculated about, finally emerged. It wasn't just about the strategic mind she'd honed over the years, it was the deep-seated ruthlessness that she had inherited from none other than Jordan Howard, her own manipulative mentor. Claire hadn't just survived the psychological torment she had endured under Jordan's tutelage. She had learned from it, absorbed the lessons, and now, she was using those same manipulative tactics to secure her freedom and control her fate. The cold, calculating nature that had been buried beneath her otherwise composed exterior was now coming to light in full force. Victor might have created a formidable enemy in Claire, but he had no idea that he was up against someone far more dangerous than he could have imagined. Someone who had been trained by the master of psychological warfare himself. While Claire's resolve and calculated maneuvers were apparent, her relationship with Kyle was beginning to show cracks. Their alliance was built on the shifting sands of mutual trust, but trust was something that had already been compromised. Kyle's admission of having kissed another woman created an irreparable chasm in their bond, one that Claire couldn't ignore. Her belief in him, rooted in faith, was now being tested. Her commitment to Kyle, despite his past transgressions, had been a leap of faith, a leap that now seemed foolish. But in the back of Claire's mind, the question lingered, could she ever truly trust him again? It was an emotional wound, one that left her vulnerable, and it didn't take long for Audra Charles to recognize that vulnerability. Audra, the ambitious and vengeful woman, had already been backed into a corner when Victor abruptly cut off her funding. She had nothing left to lose. The stakes had never been higher for her, and now, with her back against the wall, she was a force to be reckoned with. The intensity of her hatred toward Claire, coupled with her desperation to regain her power and relevance, made her an unpredictable player in this high-stakes game. What's more, Audra wasn't just going to roll over and accept defeat. She had something that could tear the fragile trust between Claire and Kyle to shreds, something irrefutable, proof. Audra had an ace up her sleeve, an incriminating photo, an audio recording, perhaps even a video. She had captured the moment when Kyle kissed her, an act that had been presented as a mere strategic move in his elaborate game to expose Victor's manipulations. But to Claire, it looked far too real. What would happen if Audra decided to release this evidence? If she could show Claire the kiss was genuine, more than just a part of Kyle's plan, it would be devastating. It would destroy the fragile foundation of trust that Claire had built with him. The picture would speak louder than any words, and it would shatter the illusion Kyle had created. In this moment, Claire was poised on the edge of a cliff, teetering between vengeance and heartbreak. She knew that she could no longer allow herself to be passive, waiting for the inevitable betrayal that might come. Victor had underestimated her, but she was far from the naive granddaughter he thought he could control. She was now the one calling the shots, taking the fight directly to Audra. But would exposing the truth mean her downfall? Would she push too far, only to find that her manipulations and strategic thinking would lead to her own undoing? Audra, on the other hand, was beginning to enjoy the role she had been thrust into, one of power, cunning, and vengeance. She was no longer the pawn in Victor's game. She was now playing her own game, and the rules were clear. Claire had to fall. But would Claire let her? Would Kyle's confession, the one that he thought would set everything right, actually be the catalyst for everything to crumble around him? As the battle between Claire and Victor reached its peak, it became clear that this wasn't just about a family feud, it was about power, control, and the lengths one would go to secure both. For Claire, this was more than just a quest for justice. It was a mission to reclaim her agency, her life, and her future from the manipulative forces that had shaped her world for too long. For Kyle, the stakes were just as high. He had already betrayed Claire once, but would he have the courage to prove that his love for her was genuine? Or would Audra's dark secrets expose a chasm too deep to bridge? In the end, this battle wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. Claire had learned from the best, and now, she was ready to put those lessons into practice. Victor's attempt to break her had failed, but the war was far from over. Audra, once a mere pawn, had become a deadly adversary, and Kyle's place in Claire's life hung by a thread. As secrets, lies, and betrayals continue to unfold, the true question remains: who will emerge victorious, and who will be left in the wreckage of this deadly game?